Hi everyone and welcome back to another video. In this video I'm going to be continuing my monthly series on murderers who were jailed in a specific month of the year, looking in this video at January of 2025, and I've selected 10 cases involving 16 people who were jailed this month for murder. In this video I'll briefly go through what each of them did, the sentence they received, and then I'll try and pick out something noteworthy from the case, such as the judge's sentencing remarks or someone who has changed their plea. Welcome to my channel Andy on Crime, where I talk about high profile criminal cases and other aspects of criminal law in England and Wales. And if you do want to support my channel, then please click the link in the description below and sign up with NordVPN, where you can get big discounts on a variety of their plans. And before I get into the video, I just want to point out something which regular viewers of my video will know, which is that everyone who is convicted of murder in England and Wales will receive a mandatory life sentence. The only question is how long the minimum term or tariff will be. In exceptional cases, an individual can be given something called a whole life order, which means that they will never be eligible to be released. Now, individuals who get a life sentence in a minimum term will not be automatically released at the end of their minimum term. That is when they can apply to the parole board to be considered for release. It's only if the parole board deem that they are no longer a danger to the public will they be released, and they'll be released on what's called license, which means that they'll be subjected to a number of conditions, which if they breach or if they commit any further offences, they can be recalled to prison. And the second thing I want to say is that I do my best to ensure accuracy, but if I do make mistakes, then I do apologise, especially if I get someone's name wrong. With all that being said, let's get into the video. First up is Jayden Gubetini, who was sentenced on the 7th of January. In May 2023, 17-year-old Cameron Bailey from West Sussex travelled with a friend to High Wycombe in Buckinghamshire. On the 6th of May, they were approached by 18-year-old Jayden Gubetini from Slough, who along with his friends robbed them of their drugs. This initial robbery went unreported to the authorities. The following day, the 7th of May, Gubetini returned to High Wycombe accompanied by 4 associates, Aaron Pattinson, Philip Solomon, Scott Cordis and Marlon Cato. They confronted Cameron Bailey and his friend in King's Court, Easton Street. During this encounter, Gubetini fatally stabbed Cameron in the back, while his friend sustained a fractured skull and cuts to his head and hand. And despite paramedics' efforts, Cameron was pronounced dead at the scene. Following the attack, Gubetini fled to the Netherlands in order to evade arrest. He was eventually apprehended and he was extradited back to the UK on the 5th of July 2023, appearing in court the following day. Gubetini's accomplices were charged in May of 2023. Following a 9-week trial at Reading Crown Court, Gubetini was found guilty of murder, attempted murder, conspiracy to commit robbery, and grievous bodily harm with intent. The grievous bodily harm charge stemmed from a separate incident on the 8th of May 2023 at HMP Bullingdon, where Gubetini assaulted another inmate with an improvised blade. On the 7th of January 2025, Gubetini was sentenced to life imprisonment with a minimum term of 29 years. At number 2 on the list, we have 4 individuals: Kammar Henry Richards, Kamani Brightly-Donaldson, Joao Pateco-Te and Jeffrey Gyimah, who was sentenced on the 14th of January. On the 13th of August 2022, 25-year-old Casey Booth was fatally shot outside the Peterhouse Community Centre in Walthamstow, North East London, as he departed a children's birthday party. The assailants fled the scene in a stolen black Jaguar E-Pace, which was later found dismantled in an attempt to destroy the evidence. Investigations revealed that the firearm used in the attack had also been employed in the shooting of Casey's brother, Kyle Booth, in August of 2020, an incident that he survived. The motive for the shooting was identified as a revenge attack stemming from gang rivalries. Henry Richards, a drill rapper known as KO, had previously been targeted in a stabbing by members of a rival gang. In the aftermath of Booth's murder, Henry Richards released a music video boasting about the attacks on both Casey and his brother Kyle, further highlighting the retaliatory nature of the crime. Following a 10-week trial at the Old Bailey, all 4 men were convicted in December of 2023 for their roles in the murder. The sentencing judge condemned the defendants for carrying out the attack at a location where children were present, stating that you knew children would be coming and going, attending a children's birthday party. The judge also remarked on the tragedy of Henry Richards' involvement, noting that he had a highly successful music career and lamented that a young man with such bright prospects should have been involved in such serious offending. On the 14th of January, the 4 men received life sentences. Brightly-Donaldson was ordered to serve a minimum term of 38 years. Henry Richards and Pateco-Te were each given minimum terms of 37 years. And Gyimah was sentenced to a minimum term of 35 years. At number 3 on the list is Anthony Gardiner, who was sentenced on the 17th of January. On the 12th of January 2022, Anthony Gardiner, a 66-year-old from Stroud in Gloucestershire, assaulted 76-year-old John Coxton in his home in Stonehouse. The attack resulted in severe head injuries, and Coxton, who suffered from Alzheimer's and advanced type 2 diabetes, was found by his carer and later died in March of 2022 due to complications from the injuries. Coxton was a registered sex offender with previous convictions for possessing indecent images of children, a fact that was well known in the local community. Anthony Gardiner was aware of Coxton's past and had previously attempted to exploit him financially. In one instance, Gardiner had accompanied Coxton to his bank, seeking a reward for finding his lost wallet, but bank staff intervened and the police were alerted. Following the assault, Gardiner was arrested after boasting about the attack. Forensic evidence, including Coxton's blood found on Gardiner's trainers, linked him to the crime. He initially denied involvement, but later confessed and pleaded guilty to murder in December of 2024. During the sentencing, the court highlighted Gardiner's lack of remorse and his extensive criminal history, labelling him a highly dangerous individual. He was sentenced to life imprisonment with a minimum term of 20 years. At number 4 on the list is Sakander Hussain, who was sentenced on the 20th of January. In the early hours of the 31st of January 2024, 25-year-old Sakander Hussain fatally stabbed 65-year-old Wallace Webb at his residence on Baldmore Lake Road in Erdington in Birmingham. Wallace was a former Birmingham City Council member and a care home chef, and was discovered deceased nearly a week later on the 6th of February after his brother, who had resided abroad, raised concerns due to a lack of communication. Upon forced entry into his property, authorities found Wallace's body, prompting the initiation of a murder investigation. Investigations revealed that Wallace had picked up an individual shortly before midnight on the 30th of January and was later seen leaving his property at around 4 a.m. Subsequent CCTV footage and transaction records indicated that Wallace's bank cards were used multiple times in the days following his death, totaling over £400 in expenditures at various Birmingham shops as well as online purchases. These transactions led investigators to Hussain, who was arrested on the 7th of February. Hussain was charged with murder and fraud by false representation. He pleaded guilty to the fraud charges but denied murder, initially claiming psychiatric issues. However, following a 4-week trial at Birmingham Crown Court, Hussain was found guilty of murder in September 2024. During the trial, it was revealed that Hussain had used Wallace's bank card at various locations, including Tesco and Cost Cutters, and had even arranged for online shopping to be delivered to his own address shortly after the killings. On the 20th of January 2025, Hussain was sentenced to life imprisonment with a minimum term of 20 years. At number 5 on the list is Abdul Babar, Sikander Babar and Sultan Bakr, who were sentenced on the 21st of January. In the early hours of the 22nd of January 2024, 30-year-old Sadiq Al-Lami was fatally attacked at a junction near Parrs Wood in East Didsbury in Manchester. As he approached a traffic light on the A34 Kingsway, a black Mercedes containing the three individuals pulled alongside his vehicle. They then exited and confronted Sadiq, and following a brief altercation, they stabbed him 11 times before fleeing the scene. Sadiq succumbed to his injuries shortly after the attack. Investigations revealed that prior to the incident, Bakr and the Babar brothers had been consuming cannabis and inhaling nitrous oxide. Forensic evidence, including a parcel, a cigarette, and several balloons with DNA matching the defendants, was recovered from the crime scene. The black Mercedes used in the attack was later found abandoned. CCTV footage and phone records traced the men's movement, showing that they ordered a taxi back from the area to their residence. Following the murder, the trio then attempted to evade justice. Bakr travelled to London, where he was apprehended by the Metropolitan Police, and the Babar brothers were discovered on the 29th of January 2024, hiding in the back of a lorry at a recycling centre in Essex. In August 2024, after a month-long trial at Minshaw Street Crown Court, Bakr and the Babar brothers were found guilty of Sadiq's murder. And on the 21st of January 2025, they were each sentenced to life imprisonment. Sultan Bakr and Sakander Babar received minimum terms of 20 years, while Abdul Babar was given a minimum term of 19 years. At number 6 on the list is Ian Black, who was sentenced on the 22nd of January. In July 2024, Ian Black, a 42-year-old resident of Havelock Terrace in Gateshead, was accused of murdering his fiance's stepfather, Christopher Henderson. The incident occurred after Christopher informed Black's fiancée about alleged infidelities, leading to a confrontation between the two men. That altercation escalated, resulting in Black assaulting Christopher outside his flat. CCTV footage captured Black repeatedly kicking and punching Christopher even after he had lost consciousness. Emergency services arrived at the scene and found Christopher with severe head injuries. He was immediately transported to hospital, where he remained in a critical condition. And despite medical efforts, Christopher succumbed to his injuries on the 29th of July 2024, approximately 2 weeks after the assault. Following Christopher's death, Ian Black was arrested and initially charged with attempted murder. As the investigation progressed and Christopher's condition worsened, the charge was elevated to murder. Black appeared before Newcastle Crown Court, where he initially pleaded guilty by way of loss of control. However, during the trial, the judge ruled that there was insufficient evidence for him to continue running that defence. As a result, Black changed his plea to guilty in respect of the charge of murder, and on the 22nd of January 2025, Ian Black was sentenced to life imprisonment with a minimum term of 19.5 years. At number 7 is the most infamous name on this list, Axel Rudakubana, who was sentenced on the 23rd of January. On the 29th of July 2024, the then 17-year-old Axel Rudakubana carried out a brutal attack at a Taylor Swift-themed dance class in Southport in England, resulting in the deaths of 3 young girls, BB King, who was 6, Elsie Stankham, who was 7, and Alice De Silva Aguirre, who was 9. In addition to those fatalities, 8 other children and 2 adults sustained serious injuries during the incident, and Rudakubana was arrested shortly after the attack. Prior to the attack, Rudakubana had been referred to the UK's counter-extremism programme Prevent on 3 separate occasions due to concerns about his interest in violence and school massacres. Despite these referrals, he was not deemed a terrorism risk and did not receive any intervention or action taken against him. Following the attack, claims about his background led to nationwide unrest and anti-immigrant sentiments, which saw demonstrations and acts of violence, with over 1,000 people arrested and hundreds charged with various crimes, including violent disorder and inciting racial hatred. On the 20th of January 2025, on the first day of his trial, Rudakubana pleaded guilty at Liverpool Crown Court to the murders, 10 counts of attempted murder, producing the toxin ricin, and possessing an Al-Qaeda training manual. On the 23rd of January 2025, having been removed twice from the court due to his disruptive behaviour, The judge sentenced Rudakubana in his absence to 13 life sentences, including minimum terms of 52 years for the murders of Bibi, Elsie, and Alice. He is unlikely to ever be released from prison when he is eligible to apply at the age of 70. The judge in this case was unable to award Rudakubana a whole life order due to the UK being signed up to the United Nations Convention on the Rights of the Child, which it ratified in 1991. Under Article 37, it states that no person under the age of 18 can be given a sentence of life without parole. At number 8 on the list is Kyle Dumble, who was sentenced on the 27th of January. On the 18th of November 2023, in Hailsham, Surrey, 24-year-old Jack Field was tragically killed when 27-year-old Kyle Dumble deliberately drove his car, a Mitsubishi Shogun, over his head. The incident occurred after a confrontation between Dumble and a group of individuals, including Field, who were walking home after celebrating a birthday. Following the altercation, Dumble took control of the vehicle and, instead of fleeing, drove at high speed, reversing into parked cars and knocking Field to the ground. Witnesses reported that Dumble then looked out of the driver's window before driving over Field, causing fatal injuries. Dumble was arrested approximately 24 hours after the incident and charged with murder, attempted grievous bodily harm with intent, driving whilst disqualified, and driving whilst uninsured. During the trial, Dumble claimed that he did not intend to hit anyone and suggested there was a fault with the vehicle. However, expert evidence refuted this claim, demonstrating that the car's mechanical condition was not a factor in the incident. The prosecution presented evidence showing that Dumble's actions were deliberate and intentional. And on the 24th of January 2025, at Hove Crown Court, Dumble was convicted of murder, attempted grievous bodily harm with intent, and driving whilst disqualified and uninsured. On the 27th of January, Dumble was sentenced to life imprisonment with a minimum term of 17 years. At number 9 on the list is Kevin Horswill, who was sentenced on the 29th of January. On the evening of the 17th of March 2024 in Thaxted, Essex, 51-year-old Kevin Horswill and 52-year-old Richard Langley had an altercation at the Star pub. Following this dispute, both men left the establishment separately. CCTV footage later captured Mr. Langley walking his dog, with Horswill seen taking the same route shortly thereafter. The sequence of events culminated in a fatal confrontation in Mr. Langley's garden on Orchard Close. During the trial at Chelmsford Crown Court, the prosecution presented evidence that Horswill had followed Mr. Langley after their pub argument and strangled him with an item of clothing in his garden. Witnesses reported hearing the assault, and members of the public attempted CPR on Mr. Langley while paramedics arrived, but he was pronounced dead at the scene. Horswill, who sustained serious head injuries during the incident, was arrested at his home in the early hours of the 18th of March after receiving hospital treatment. He was subsequently charged with murder and remanded into custody. Throughout the trial, Horswill claimed that he acted in self-defence, alleging that Mr. Langley had attacked him with a hammer. However, the jury found these claims unconvincing. On the 28th of January 2025, the jury convicted Horswill of the murder by a majority verdict, and the following day, on the 29th of January, Horswill was sentenced to life imprisonment with a minimum term of 18 years. And finally, at number 10 on the list, we have two individuals, Steve Sansom and Gemma Watts, who were sentenced on the 30th of January. In March 2024, 45-year-old Sansom and his partner 49-year-old Watts lured 38-year-old Sarah Mayhew to their residence in South London under the pretense of a social visit. Unbeknownst to Sarah, the couple had harboured sadistic fantasies and had planned her murder in advance. Once she arrived, they subjected her to a brutal attack, ultimately leading to her death. Following the murder, Sansom and Watts used power tools to dismember Sarah's body. They disposed of her remains in various locations across South London, including Rowdown Fields in New Addington and the River Wandle in Mitcham. The dismembered body parts were discovered by members of the public in April and May of 2024, prompting a police investigation. The investigation revealed that Sansom and Watts shared a mutual interest in sadomasochistic violence. Messages exchanged between them detailed their desire to commit acts of violence during sexual activity. These communications provided crucial evidence of their premeditated intent to harm Sarah. Sansom had murdered before as well, having served nearly 20 years in prison for stabbing a minicab driver on Christmas Eve in 1998 and stealing his wallet, and he was released from prison on license in 2019. Both Sansom and Watts were arrested and charged with the murder of Sarah and perverting the course of justice. They pleaded guilty to these charges at the Old Bailey, and on the 30th of January, Mrs. Justice Cutts sentenced Watts to life imprisonment with a minimum term of 30 years. Sansom was given a whole life order, meaning he will never be released from prison.